I was talking to him and he's like, yeah, I hear somebody around here likes bourbon. I was like,
everyone. It's everyone.
Apparently his wife used to work in the industry and she has like a bunch of really rare bottles that he has access to. He's like, yeah, you like Stag Junior? I'll bring some down. Like,
that's awesome.
I love Stag Junior.
We definitely need to get on that.
Yeah.
If you're listening out there and you have some Stag Junior, send it his way.
Or anything else. And it doesn't have to just be Adam, just because this is about Adam today.
No, it should be Adam.
You can send it to me as well. Or Chris. Chris and I can sit there and watch Better Call Saul together, drink some Blantons or Stag, whatever you want. What's your favorite, Chris?
I'm not drinking right now.
Oh, wow, really?
But when you were drinking?
Whatever y'all had. Yep.
It was basically Chris would come and get our stuff, come to our house. Chris is also not doing any caffeine, I don't think.
Yep, first day without coffee or any caffeine.
So you basically slowly cut down, right? Like you started with, I'm going to do 16 ounces, then 12.
Started at the games, which was probably a dumb idea, but it worked out because I knew if I was at the games and I was drinking caffeine, it would be very hard to turn down all the free drinks they hand you with caffeine, and that by the middle of the day, I would have been on like drink 21.
Max was doing no caffeine at the games too. He was doing his like ginger.
Well, I was drinking a little coffee in the morning, but I didn't. But then
that was already starting.
It was coming down.
Yeah. The other part of my jury duty story was that day it messed up my coffee routine in the morning. So I only had like a quarter of a cup of coffee, and it had to last me for like till 2 p.m.
And how grumpy were you?
I was not happy.
They're like, we definitely don't want to pick this guy.
Get him out of here.
He seems terrible. Well, speaking of the games, you just got back last week, and I think I would call it a success. It's funny. We had a podcast with Alexis, and she said, my goal is top 10. Yeah. But then once I got there, I was disappointed into myself.
The goalpost move.
Exactly.
It's really
that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
So as a coach, you've been through this process before with other athletes. Last year, you had 1 or 2 masters athletes there. Is that correct?
Yeah, Ben was there.
But this was your first time with an individual athlete, and especially one that's, she's just extremely talented.
Yeah, I had Katie Trombetta the year that they did all the national champions, which was a bit of a strange year. Like there's a lot of people qualifying there who probably from the outside, like people would say like, this isn't really what the game should be. Like they did those huge cuts on the first 2 days. So it had a different feel to it, even though I felt like Katie deserved to be there.
For sure.
But even Alexis this year, like it definitely has a different feel than other years. There was a set of higher expectations for her. And it was also just going to be really, really exciting to see her go there on the big stage and sort of show what she's capable of and let the world know that she's here and she's going to be here for years to come.
Yeah. I want to dive into the games and the relationship that you guys kind of had during that process, but I want to like rewind a little bit. We talked about this a little bit when you and Alexis were on together, but I want to go back to when you met Alexis and the thought process you have as a coach. Just as some background, I'll let you kind of talk with how you handle things, but when we take people on, we do an assessment. We get an idea of like really where they're at, and they tell us their goals, right?
Yeah.
So in that assessment and in the goals that she talked to you about, where did you think was a realistic place for her to be in the time that now it's been, 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. So I took her on when she was 19. She had been to the games twice as a teen. She'd been on the podium. And I took her through initial testing. And after that, we had a talk. And the initial testing, there was definitely things that stood out that was like, holy shit, like there's something here. Like there's like a 5-minute AMRAP of toes to bar, 5-minute AMRAP of chest to bar, unbroken sets of strict handstand pushups. And all of those numbers were just off the freaking charts. Yeah. And I was like, did you mess this up?
Are you sure you did this right?
Are these numbers right? And she's like, yeah. It's like 80 toes to bar in like 3 minutes or something. And then like 50 unbroken strict handstand pushups. And I'm just like, holy crap, like there is really something here. But she had never had legit structured progressions on any of her strength work. And she had constantly been injured. She had constantly had elbow issues from gymnastics. She had back issues from always trying to overdo some of the strength stuff that she knew was a weakness, but she just didn't know how to address it. She didn't know how to actually like structure a progression that kept her healthy over time. And so in my head, I'm like, man, this is going to be really exciting because I know the potential that is there. And I also know that if we're smart with this, we're going to be able to sort of like uncover the diamond that's underneath. But I didn't know how long it was going to take. I also have never worked with somebody that had that level of potential that was unrealized. I've worked with higher level athletes before, and it's basically like you're just trying to keep them healthy and get them to game day. This was like a developmental project that you knew that was going to last years and years, but you could already see glimpses of it. And so 1, it was exciting. 2, right from the start, I felt a lot of pressure as a coach because it's like, don't mess this up.
Yeah.
Right. Like, don't mess this up. This girl can go places. You need to really make sure that you do things carefully, you do things patiently, and that you try and make sure that she's appropriately challenged over the course of whatever the rest of her career is going to be. Because you can't, somebody who's had injuries like that, like you can't coddle it. You can't feed into the thoughts of it. So like even this last year right before the Open, when she hurt her back, a lot of that is mindset training to try and get her out of her own head. And so like even going back then when she was coming off of back injuries and tweaks and all of that, like the conversation was always, you're not broken, you're not weak, you're stronger than you think, your body is going to cooperate, we just have to stay patient with it. And so those talks have basically led us to the point where now when she gets a back tweak, she's confident and patient enough in herself to realize this doesn't have to be a deal breaker. This doesn't have to be like an injury that sets you back for months and months. This is just part of the process. And so now getting to this point, we can sort of like manage our way and negotiate our way through those ups and downs much, much better as a result of having that patient start at the very beginning of it.
So what were the initial conversations that you had with her after you did the assessment? Were you communicating with her like, hey, there is a lot of potential here and I think that you can be a games level athlete? Or was it more like you kept that to yourself?
I kept most of that to myself. I did say like, these numbers are awesome. I think you've got a high potential in the sport. I don't know where it's going to take us. I really am excited to see where it goes. I think right from the start, she was saying, I want to be a games level athlete individually. I think like you've talked to her enough to know that that's been her goal ever since coming out of the teen division. I don't like to set expectations like that because I don't like having a definition of success that like lies outside of our scope of control.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I talked about a lot with Max over the weekend at the games is having objective goals that are a little bit outside of your internal locus of control. They can set you up for artificial failure, which then impacts your sustainability over the course of your career. That's a huge, huge thing to take on. It's a huge risk to take. Instead, what you try and do with an athlete like that is you try and get them to strive for what might be a personal definition of excellence. How excellent can I be? And that's going to then manifest itself on the leaderboard at the end of the day, whether it's the Open, the quarterfinals, or even making it to semifinals in the games. So the thought was always to try and get her to push to what it was the level of her potential, knowing that if she reached it there and she was able to be healthy enough on game day, that it was then going to manifest itself objectively on any leaderboard that she was actually on.
One of the things that excites me when you have raw talent like that is someone that hasn't been through structured progressions of any kind. And I think that she said that too, and you've mentioned that in the past. And it's like, man, this is actually a really cool thing because now I can start creating structure and then seeing how fast they can progress. So what was that process like for you guys? I assume that you had to get some buy-in from her because she was just kind of jumping around, right?
She was jumping around a lot. She was doing her own things sometimes. She did have coaches before me.
Okay.
But I don't think that they were coaches in the sense of actually like being very diligent with the program. I think they were just more of like CrossFit coaches who are going to give you CrossFit. Okay, you're weak. We're going to try and make you stronger by giving you a lot of strength work. And she's supplementing that, I'm sure, a little bit on her own because any young girl who's hungry to take next levels in the sport, they're going to want to do everything that they possibly can. What's really interesting and unique, I think, about Alexis is she is able to take a longer term approach with things, even at that age, even at 19. So I remember after we started up and after we had developed a relationship, she had told me that when I signed up with you, I told myself I was going to give it 6 months. Like she didn't know me from anybody on the street, but she knew that trust in that process and like letting it run its course was going to be the main determinant of success, right? And so even at that age, she was like, I'm going to give this a real chance. I'm going to see if it works. And somehow, luckily, over the course of that 6 months, I earned a little bit of trust and I got my foot in the door. And then from there, the relationship has continued to grow and build off of that foundation. But that was a very necessary thing because a lot of the strength work that we did early on was not sexy. It was not fun. It was not like snatch ladders and like, clean and jerk max every Friday. Like it was not that. It was very slow, monotonous, like strength progressions, getting external loading on her in different angles and like different force vectors. It was very boring. But I think now we've gotten to the point where we're sort of like reaping what we sowed. Like we built a really, really good foundation and now we can do the exciting progressions. Yeah. Now we can do the squat cycles. Now we can do the deadlift cycles. Now we can do yoke progressions out there on the gym. Like it's gotten to the point now where she trusts her back and she trusts the foundation that she's built, that now you can do the fun stuff. But that getting started point, it was a challenge, but it was more due to her patience than any programming or planning on my end that got her through that side of things.
Man, if more people would take that route of saying, I'm going to give it 6 months or 8, whatever, just a longer period of time than we've talked about this before, but it's like people sign up and then they see the boring stuff and immediately either cancel or they come to our online programs. Like we are a program or we're a coaching organization that is programming for the future and not just the now. You know, it's not just like, let's get you in the door and have fun. It's like, we're trying to actually develop athletes. And I think that most people kind of like, they're always, and maybe it's just type A personalities in the sport, but they're always wanting to go now. But that doesn't lead or lend itself to success in the future, or at least it usually doesn't.
Yeah, I think that it is, there's there's a certain kind of personality that's attracted to CrossFit, but I also think that the sport itself, it lends itself to immediate gratification, not delayed gratification. There's always something new that you can work on that, like, if I go out there today and I try like wall facing handstand push-ups, I'm going to get better at it over the course of like my first 3 exposures, just because it's something new that I don't realize. How do I hold my body? How do I actually brace? Like, how do I get, like, how far away do my hands have to be from the wall? There's so many different variations of those movements that if I try something new, I'm going to get better at it. And so people are very used to that immediate gratification inside of CrossFit. And then if you get somebody who has long-term goals, you kind of take away that immediate gratification and you make it a little bit more of a delayed process. That's hard to buy into. And then so you get people jumping around in programs or changing coaches every 6 months or every season.
Was it hard to get Alexis to buy into doing some of that boring stuff? Was there a give and take, or how did that go?
I don't remember a ton of like negative feedback from it. I feel like she knew at that point, like, what she was doing wasn't working great. She was getting hurt a little bit too often. She knew that she had to slow down a little bit, but anytime that you start up with something new like that, it is always kind of like pulling back on the reins a little bit. So I'm sure that there was some of that. The fact that I don't remember a lot of, like, I won't say arguments, but like pushbacks, like, hey, I need to be doing more. It just speaks to like the patience that she had even at that young age. So,
and she still has that. I mean, she's so well-rounded, especially in her head. Like emotionally, she knows how to handle the moment. And you saw, we talked to her about this on the last podcast, but like you could almost feel it through the screen that she was confident in certain workouts. Even if she wasn't, I think she does a good job of saying, okay, I know I can attack this and I'm just as good as all the other females around me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. When she is confident and when she puts herself in a place to be able to attack, there's nothing that's going to stop her.
And we saw that in one of the workouts.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
But what we need to figure out a way to try and like scale that up to workouts that are kind of on the edge of like, yeah, this could be good, but I know that she's good. So I kind of have to run my own race. It's like, well, no, like if you have goals to be able to take next steps in the sport, even from top 10 in the world, you're going to have to try and find that mindset, even on a workout that's not pure wheelhouse, right? And that's one of the things that we're going to try and chase in this next season.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, she had a really successful year. She makes it to a semifinal, which obviously is the new structure. She gets there. She has a great weekend. All of our viewers have heard that story before, so we won't reiterate that here. But the after effects of that, there had to be something there that, and we haven't had this conversation, so I'm actually super interested in what were the conversations that you and Alexis had after the heartbreak of finishing. I mean, it's the last workout. She has her chance. She has to hit that squat clean. She doesn't hit it. Now she finishes 6th.
Yeah.
She has to restart all over. And it's a whole nother year before she gets her chance again. Yeah. What were those conversations between you and her?
Yeah. I think I was surprised mostly because I afterwards we talk about like, you know, what your emotions are like, what your response is like, what your reaction is going to be heading into the next season. And I know that inside she was sad and disappointed, but honestly, like, I feel like the overwhelming emotion for her was like, I don't know if anger is the right word, but it was like this very, very hot passion to not allow that to happen again.
I want to prove everyone
it wasn't
wrong.
Like feeling bad for herself. Like there was, like I said, there was disappointment with it because we had worked really hard, and I feel like it was really realistic to make the games that year. But I feel like more than anything else, it was just like this fire that was lit to just not ever feel that feeling again. And you can't create that artificially. You can't just like tell somebody like, hey, go fire yourself up and pretend you got 6th place at the games. Like that's something that has to happen in that setup. And that's something that person has to make the decision to leverage those emotions for the better. And that's exactly what she did. She took all of that energy, all of that passion, and she just poured it into training over the next season. Like it was hard because she had knee surgery in, I forget when it was, September or October.
Yeah, I think.
And so there was a long time there where we weren't able to actually train. But even then, like she was hitting like her upper body strength progressions with like the kind of intensity of like somebody who's prepping for a semifinal. Right. And it lasted the whole off season. It was, I think I wrote about it. It was mind boggling to me, the focus and determination that she had in that off season after West Coast and then leading into this year. I've never seen anything like that. And it was like the growth that she's had has been meteoric as a result of that.
Right.
And it's almost like, man, thank God that happened.
Yeah. Because I think you have to have that.
Yeah. This kind of athlete, this kind of person wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for that.
So how did training change after West Coast? You know, you have another year before the semifinal opportunity again to get her to the games. Did things change? Were you happy with where she was at? Obviously you saw that the squat clean, maybe a strength issue there. Like what were the things that you decided like these are the priorities?
Yeah. So once we got her knee healthy, the strength progressions, especially in the squat pattern, was definitely going to be the biggest priority. And that was one where I went to Kyle Ruth and Kyle Habdo, and they had already started messing around with some of the BFR progressions for squats and trying to combine that with different kinds of squat cycles. And I was like, hey, listen, guys, like this is number one priority for her. Like we have to get her legs stronger. We have to get her core stronger. So I want to be able to do this right. So
that's blood flow restriction for anyone.
Blood flow restriction, BFR. I hadn't played around with it much before I actually started giving it to her. I started putting it in my own training. And the benefits are immediate and they are huge. And
don't do that without consulting with a medical professional.
We have lots of educational material inside of the classroom, but one of the things that I have is I have Kyle Ruth, who is also a subject matter expert. And so any questions that I had or any like thoughts about the program, like I could just run past him whenever I wanted to. We took Alexis through, it was an 8-week cycle before quarterfinals and then another cycle before semifinals, and all of her metrics just went through the roof. But knowing that and sort of knowing that the other side of things was the confidence side, I don't think that I had much impact on that. I think, honestly, a lot of the self-confidence came from the environment that we have here and being able to train next to Sarah, especially next to Travis, being able to get with Noah, being able to get with Jake as often as possible. Those sessions are just so invaluable for an athlete's confidence. Like she's looked up to Sarah for years. They competed together. I think it was 2017 in the Central Regional. And like, you can picture little Alexis 6 years ago, like looking up at the beast that is Sarah Sigmund's daughter and being like, oh my God, like it's a different species. Like there's just this completely different level of athlete. And then all of a sudden Sarah's here and she's training next to her.
They live together.
They live together, but Alexis is beating her. And then it's all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I belong. Like I can do this. Like this, no longer is it questioning myself. No longer is it like, these girls are better and I just need to get a great subset of workouts in order to have a chance. It's like, no, like I belong. And so all of those months spent in the on-site training environment, training next to people who have proven themselves year after year and not just holding your own, beating them in workouts, it just did wonders for her confidence. And so walking into semifinals, even like at Syndicate, which for the female side of the roster, like you could say was pretty freaking stacked. Like Ariel Lowen finishing 6th and then like running away with the last chance. That should tell you everything you need to know about Syndicate. She walked into that and she wasn't scared of anybody. And like that is a testament, one, to the growth that she had physically, but mostly to the growth that she had mentally. And that, like, I don't know how to replicate that. I think there's some athletes who you throw them into that environment, that pressure cooker out there that has all those games athletes, and they're going to shrink away. They're going to be like, they lose a workout and they just completely question everything. Or there's going to be an athlete like Alexis who they go in there, they lose a workout, they get pissed off. They win a workout, they say, all right, great, now I'm going to go win the next one too. Like there's just a different kind of athlete that responds in a different way.
On that note, so it's like, she definitely got confidence from beating Sarah, but oftentimes too, Sarah would push her out of her comfort zones on the, how did she handle that?
Yeah, I mean, the cream definitely rises to the top in that pressure cooker environment, but there is something special about the power of community and accountability, competition, and putting that group of individuals together, like every single person, every single body moved and improved on the things that they needed to improve upon because of that environment. Like they held each other accountable. And I think that is like what makes all these training camps so special, getting a group together and making sure they're pushing themselves.
Yeah. Getting dragged outside of her comfort zone. I think that Sarah is, you've seen her, like just world-class at definite things in the sport, one of them being machines. And so anytime there was a machine in something and Sarah's holding 150 to 200 calories per hour more on like a threshold pace than Alexis or Allison or Pip or anybody else, it can be very, not humbling, but almost like confidence shaking, right? Like, holy shit, like she is that much better. It teaches you one thing, there's levels to this, right? Like we saw this even at the games, like Alexis is a really good runner. She's a really good swimmer. She's really good with gymnastics. You get there, Everyone is really good at those things.
And there's 40 females that are really good at it.
Yeah, all of a sudden you've got girls who are holding like 5:20 miles or like 18-minute 5Ks. And then like they're swimming and they're beating you by 15 seconds on a 50 meter. It's like, holy shit, this is ridiculous. But what it teaches you also is it teaches you that there's going to be times where you have to stay in your own lane. You have to let them run their race. There's going to be other times, especially in the off season, where things that you thought were your strength need to be built even more. And that's on me too. Like that, I can't just look at Alexis now and think gymnastics are fine, running is fine, swimming is fine. We have to do more strength work. Now it's like everything needs to come up another level. Everything does. If you have aspirations to be able to compete at the level that you want this next year, everything has to get better just because the level of competition continues to rise up.
I think one of the benefits though for her now is she's good at everything. You know, there are things she's not great at yet, but at least now there aren't these holes where it's like, this is the thing we have to focus on because it's going to hold you back from even making the games. Like she's so good at everything, she's going to make it. And now it's a matter of how good can we actually get you to have top 5 finishes instead of just top 10s or top 12s.
Yeah, that's the really interesting thing coming into this year. Because this year it was basically like, let's make sure that you get to the games.
Right.
Let's do the training that's going to get us through quarterfinals. That's going to get us through the gatekeeper workouts at semifinals. And then when we get to the games, we're going to have fun. This next year, I think things change. This next year, I think it's more about we're going to try and get you games ready throughout the course of the year. Now, whether that be like if we decide to go to Rogue in October, if we do something with Wadapalooza in January, I don't know what that looks like. But after that point, it's basically let's keep you healthy during the season, but let's start training with an eye towards what's going to end up happening in Madison.
So things like running and swimming, since you mentioned those.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume the bias may be strongman style work again, or the interval style stuff. So more of that, as opposed to she doesn't need to do the open workouts like you know, maybe that's what you mean.
Yeah, no, I think that those kinds of things, getting outside of the gym, getting in the sun more often because she hates working out in the sun.
She mentioned that.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, I forget which day it was when they were doing the ring muscle up one. That might've been Friday. Yeah, it was Friday. It was Friday.
Yeah, so middle of the day, it was hot.
The up and over, the ring muscle ups and then the jump overs and the GHDs. And that on paper, I felt like should have been a better workout for her. It wasn't like a failure. It just should have been a better workout for her. But like you could just tell that she was just hot. She was just hot and tired. And little things like that, like if you just take like a regular gym session, you put out in the field in the sun over the course of like February, March, and April, she gets a little bit more acclimated to that. And that's games prep while still getting CrossFit prep for all the other season, like the other stages of the season. So that's how you try and keep an eye towards more of the future and not necessarily worry as much about like the short-term goals.
Yeah. A perfect example of that would be the quarterfinal workout where it's 3 rounds of 30, 30, and 10 ring muscle up. She crushed it. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the top, I don't remember what her score was, top in the world. Yeah. And by a lot. Like, I mean, there was a huge gap from the females that were top, 30, 40, and then everyone else. But that was in the gym in this environment. So just learning to expose yourself to some of those.
You should do some wind prep too, because I got footage of her hanging on one ring because she jumped up and the other one blew away.
I told her that when we start doing more like race-based training and there's ring muscle ups in it, I'm going to go over and smack them with a PVC and she has to jump up as quick as she can.
Everyone had to deal with it.
I think there was
Rogue is outside.
Yep.
Even Wadapalooza, like the Bayfront stage where they always have the rings. Those things are all over the place. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to get used to what it feels like to jump up, try and catch, adjust your grip, and then immediately find your kip pattern. Like that, having that as a skill is something that like we have to work on.
It's very challenging to do that.
Oh, I can't wait to see that in the gym.
He's got the PVC pipe just whacking
like a pinata.
You have to do it. You have to do it. It sounds ridiculous, but you have to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, but before we get to the game stuff, semifinals, she finishes there, obviously qualifies for the games. Training is on site full time. You're here for almost every single session. What were the things that you wanted to make sure that she was targeting in that, let's call it 7 weeks or something like that, 8 weeks between semifinals and the games? And what were the things that went really well and the things that maybe you were a little worried about going into the games?
Yeah, things that went really well. She is just an incredibly fast learner. And it's one of the things that like, I think has helped to separate her. I think part of it is like gymnastics background and part of it is just like her as an individual. Like she's just constantly holding herself to a higher standard and won't accept to like do something like with any level of mediocrity. It's basically like, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it really right. I want to make it really efficient. And then I want to like build off of that from there. So little things about the games that we knew were going to come up, like something with the flip side. The flip side's a good example. So she had never touched it before. We were lucky enough to have 2 come here on site. We spent a couple of weeks with it, figuring out the hand placement, figuring out how to put it on your hip, figuring out how to do the turnover at the top. She picks things like that up so freaking quick. It's like downright scary and maddening because it's like, that's not fair that you do this good. But what ended up happening was in that pig flip workout that started, that's the capital one, that pig felt like nothing because it was just like all the time that she had spent working on that kind of motion, even though it was different, like that thing obviously doesn't have any handles to it. She's able to do that with this level of confidence that just never would have happened otherwise. But what I tried to do with some of the game stuff was I tried to make sure that she's touching odd object strength work, which I think still went really well. We had never touched a yoke heavier than like 425 and she carried 485 for whatever that was, so like heavy. 50 feet unbroken. It's just amazing to me. But I feel like a lot of the games prep stuff was really more about volume acclimation than anything else. That's the difference. Another difference when we talk about like, if you're trying to peak and taper for quarterfinals or semifinals, and if you're trying to get ready for the games, is the games level of volume and density and intensity that comes with that is just another level, right? And I think that we need to start preparing her for that a little bit earlier this season. Part of that is working out in the heat. Part of that is not being able to eat in between sessions because you have no more than like 30 minutes and you're walking all over the place. Part of that is just trying to do 9 workouts over 3 days. Like we do a games camp that has that, but it's dialed back a little bit and we adjust when needed.
Yeah.
But I'd like to go through a couple of different cycles like that where we kind of peak with something that's touching that level of volume and density and intensity and heat and everything else, because I think that that's going to set her in a place to be able to both physically and mentally be able to perform at the games next year.
So you guys get to the games, and this year they really didn't announce as many as they normally do, like a couple of days before, right? Usually the 4 or 5, maybe even more are out, or at least they give you quite a few hints.
Yeah.
So there's some unknowns there. What was the conversation like with Alexis as far as, okay, once these workouts come out, how did you guys game plan for each one? Did you let her make those decisions, or were you like very intentional about being involved?
I think that she would prefer me to be more involved than not, which is why I would never try and like put myself in a place where
that's
I'm
what
like,
she said on the last episode.
Yeah, I would never try and like force a strategy on her. I think that right now what we've figured out is there's a way that I think about workouts that tends to be beneficial for her. And I'm not saying that my strategy is perfect, but I do say like the way that I can try and think about where the limiters are going to be in a workout, or where the bottleneck's going to be, or where she can try and find a place to like extend a lead or separate more. And I think about that, and then I'll try and like reverse engineer what a strategy is going to look like from there. And then I'll bring it to her and say like, all right, here's what I'm thinking. Does this match with what you're thinking? And more often than not, it does. I think that the big thing that we try and focus on is trying to build points of confidence in each workout. So one of the things that Kyle Ruth has given me is this competitor sheet, and he's given it to all the coaches. And so if you have a set of workouts that, say you're going to an on-site competition like Wadapalooza or something, and they release all the workouts ahead of time, one of the things that we like to have our athletes do is list points of performance and then confidence building, like just thoughts, like positive mantras in your head. I'm good with pig flips. I can run faster than these girls. I don't like carrying heavy sandbags, but I've worked on it and I'm excited to show what I have. Little things like that you try and give them to focus on that are separate from the strategy, but it's something that they can try and come back to in the moment when things get god awful heavy and like people are passing them. They still have to try and stay positive in their head because there's still a race going on. So that strategy stuff combined with also like confidence building thoughts is all of what we try and do before a workout.
Yeah. I'm interested because you know her really well, but you don't know the other athletes. I mean, obviously you get an idea of like where their times are and what they're capable of, but how much does the pacing or the strategies change going into the games, knowing all of these females are amazing as opposed to even semifinals or quarterfinals? In other words, like that first workout comes out and there's 10 miles of biking, 75 toes to bar, 75 chest bars. She's amazing at gymnastics. Probably a little unknown there about how fast she's going to be on the bike. Were there conversations of, hey, these girls probably are going to do sets of 15s, 20s, whatever it is on these gymnastics pieces? Or was it more about like, let's just stay in our own lane here, being the first workout. We know you can do these sets on the gymnastics and we know you can do this pace on the bike.
Yeah, I think it was more the latter. I think that more so I want her to be in a place where she's really, really confident with the strategy that we put out, which more often than not is probably more conservative than anything else, but I also know that that's just how she works well. Like trying to ask her to go for bigger unbroken sets of the gymnastics is never going to be a best strategy for her, even though she is really good at it. Yeah. So even though girls opened up with sets of 25 and 30 and huge 35 sets on the Tosa bar, she did 15, 15, 15, 15, and then I think like 8-7 or something to finish. And she was like 4th or 5th off the Tosa bar.
Which almost always works better and faster than doing big sets.
Well, even at Syndicate, when they had those 60 pull-ups in the middle, like it doesn't pay to do, 30 and then 30. Right. Like there's still work left to do. So part of it is like, you need to know about where the other girls are going to be. But I also I feel like for her, we've gotten to a really good place now where I kind of know the kind of strategy that she will naturally gravitate to. And I know how to break it down in my head to make it very practical. Like, all right, you're going to do 15 reps. You're going to drop down. You're going to take 2 breaths. You're going to jump up and do another 15. And that's just your rhythm from there. Chest to bars after the first five laps, 5 mile bike was a little bit more open to interpretation, but it always has the same principle of like, don't go to failure. Don't come out and start with 30, even though you just got off the bike and your arms are probably a little bit more fresh. It's like, do your 15s, go to 8-7s when you need to. And then coming off of that, she was in 3rd. And it's like sticking in her lane is what got her to that point. Right.
So trusting that.
But again, like that's never been an issue with her.
Yeah. So you've obviously had athletes at the games like we already talked about, but in this case, she's crushing that first workout. I don't know if you could really tell exactly where she was because of the nature of the laps when they're the last 5 laps.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming you knew she was towards the top.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
what were the emotions like now with her there, as opposed to maybe just like in general other athletes you've had in the past? Because like, okay, she's really competitive and she's got a chance here to maybe get a top 3, top 5.
Yeah, the emotions for me, like I was nervous for the weekend as a whole. I don't think it was nervous because I didn't think that she was going to do well. It's just like I was nervous because of like the scale of the event, right? Like this is just like, it's like her coming out party in a way. And I was just like, same way you get nervous for a wedding day. It's like, I'm not going to mess this up. Like I'm not going to walk away and still be single, I hope.
You never know.
I never know. Becky doesn't show up.
She's like, screw this guy.
That guy. But that kind of nervous, but it was more of like nervous excitement. Like I was just freaking ready. Like And so even in that event, like I knew gymnastics going to be a good separator. She talks about not being good on the bike. She's really good on the bike, and she has like zero risk tolerance. Like she's just going to ride right on somebody's tire and just drop them. She did that. Maybe a little too aggressively.
Took someone out.
Yeah. But that event, I was just ready for it because I knew that it was going to be a great way to start the weekend with good momentum. I did not think that 4th place was going to be it. I thought it was going to be like a top 10. But we were watching her come out after the chest to bars in 3rd. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be good. This is going to be really good because she's just going to find somebody's tire and sit on it. And then she's going to be able to finish hard at the end. I remember watching the last couple of laps with Kyle Lube up on the top of the bleachers. And then she came in and she was right on Laura's wheel, but then he and I turned and we ran down the bleachers so we could see the race finish. And so I didn't see the crash. Mm-hmm. But we saw the race finish and like, we're going crazy because we saw her win. And then I walked over to her family and I had this huge smile on my face. I was like, oh man, what a start. And her dad's like, she crashed. Did you see that? I was like, what? And then her brother's like, she put her thing on the wrong gumdrop. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? That was awesome. And then, like all these things that I missed because I wasn't looking at the right thing, but it was also like, man, there's just so much chaotic, positive energy going on that it was just a great start to the weekend.
I mean, a huge start, getting a top 5 in your first event at the games. Yeah. It has to be amazing. She talked about that in the podcast. But for you as a coach, you still have to be forward thinking in that, hey, there are 12, 13 more events to go over the weekend. I need to make sure she stays focused.
Yeah.
What was that conversation?
Well, that conversation I think happened before the games.
Yeah.
That is basically like trying to set expectations for over the course of a 12, 14, 15. We had 14 scores, I think. Yeah. You have that many events in a weekend, you're going to have ups and downs.
Right.
You're going to have ups and downs. There's just no way around it. Everybody has it. I mean,
saw it with Tia this year.
The ability to be able to process whatever emotions come from it, whether it's an up or a down, immediate in that moment, try and take away any lessons that are going to help you for this weekend, not necessarily training going forward, but just for this weekend. What can I learn? What did I do that was really well that I can apply? What did I do that I didn't like execution wise that I need to be able to apply for the future events? And then just putting that thing in a box, put it into the side and then moving to the next event. Like that is a conversation that happened ahead of time and was obviously revisited while we were there. Like, all right, that bike event, hell yeah, lots of good stuff. You stayed in your lane, you ran your race, you finished aggressively, and look at what it got you. Let's see what we can do to try and like package that guy up and apply it to the next events. Some of the other bad finishes, like, all right, what happened? Like, what were your thoughts in your head when you were trying to sit there and stare at the rings on the muscle ups? What did you feel like when you got hot out there? What did you feel like when people were passing you? Okay, let's talk about that. Let's make sure that we try and address that sort of like narrative that's going on in your head and to get it out of there so we can replace it with this positive, like attack-minded mantra that I want you to be able to focus on going forward.
Are those the actual questions that you're asking her? Like, do you feel very comfortable pulling out the emotions of where she's at and then talking about those?
She's very mindful as an athlete and she kind of knows how she talks to herself. And so just thinking about like, hey, all right, you felt a little sorry for yourself when you were out there and the rings weren't going the way that you wanted. Now it's like, how can we try and get out ahead of that next time? So, but it's not like she doesn't feel bad for herself in that moment. Like she's not going to sit there and like have a pity party. Like she's very practical with how she approaches those kinds of conversations and then trying to improve the self-talk. And so it's not like I'm feeding into negative emotions. It's really trying to take away what is something actionable that we can use for better or worse to then move forward with the rest of the weekend.
Yeah. So speaking of that, moving forward, I want to jump to the workout that she won because that was obviously a pretty amazing moment for everyone. I think an amazing moment for her more than anybody else, but also for you. Too bad we didn't get any film of them in the back talking afterward. That would have been amazing. Chris couldn't be back there. But before that event, it comes out and she said she knows right away that she's going to win the event. And I love that. I love that attitude. Obviously, she's not going to express it to everyone beforehand.
She said that she knew.
She said she knew. I'm assuming that you knew it was going to be a top 5. Unless something terrible happens, she's going to do very, very well in it.
Yeah, I had told her, because the teams had a version of it, the wall facing handstand push-up earlier in the day.
Right.
And I remember telling her before we heard that workout, I was like, there's going to be wall facing handstand push-ups, and it's probably going to be mixed with an echo bike. And you're probably going to get a lot of points from that. And then it came out and we saw it. And in my head, I'm like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. This is going to be a great way to, one, get us some momentum that we'd lost a little bit on Friday with that up and over event. And I think the Capitol was Friday morning. Like both of those were just really mentally challenging workouts for her. Great way to sort of build some momentum back. But also just being in the Coliseum with a workout that is a wheelhouse workout, I can't imagine a more fun experience for an athlete to have. Like she had said on Wednesday night, the Elizabeth version that Ariel won. Ariel was one of the ones, like her and her husband Dylan in the back. Like we talked with them a lot. They're just awesome people. And watching Ariel win that workout, like you feel just these really, really good emotions for her, right? Yeah. It's like just one of those people that you just want to wish good for. And so watching her win that workout, it was awesome. And then she turns to me, she's like, I want to win a workout. I want to get an event win. And like part of me is like, all right, you know that there's people who've won the games that haven't won a workout. Travis and Noah have been here 17 years combined and they've won one.
Yeah. Well, here's a perfect example. Medeiros in 3 years has won 2 workouts, but won twice.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So like
this is a rarity. Let's
Right.
not count on it. And then of course that workout comes out and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe she's gonna win this.
She has a chance.
So that gets released. We go back. The warm-up area is actually set up pretty well. They had a lot of those ballistic blocks back in the back. So there's a lot of different stations for people to be able to practice. And so we start warming up a little bit for it. And I'm looking around, I'm watching some of the other girls warm up, especially some of the ones who I know are good at handstand push-ups. And I see them do some reps and then I see Lex do some reps. I'm like, we're going to win this workout. Yeah. Like there's just no doubt about it.
Her first 10 reps looked like regular handstand push-ups. Whereas even for those that were good, they looked grindy.
Yeah. It was night and day difference, even in the warm-up area. Like
how often not to cut you off, sorry. How often have you guys practiced variations like that ever?
Wall facing?
Yeah.
No.
She's just so good on her hands.
Yeah.
So good.
Nothing to do with
shoulder strength, endurance is amazing.
Nothing to do with anything that we've
like
done.
You mentioned this before, but she could do 50 unbroken. I've seen her do workouts where there's probably 75 to 100 handstand push-ups and she just does big unbroken sets the whole time. It's impressive.
The other thing about her strict handstand push-ups, which for that event specifically, like just led to be a little bit more confidence building, is I don't know if you've seen this in the on-site. When her strict handstand push-ups go to failure, they come back so quick.
She recharges in 30 seconds or less.
She hops down off the wall and does this, and all of a sudden her strict, like that doesn't happen to anybody else. Not only is she really good at it, they recover so quick that she can actually push to failure without much risk.
Right.
I've never seen that with anybody else. Like anytime anybody else like comes up with a strict handstand push-up, stay away from failure. Stay away from failure.
Fail.
Do not go to failure. With her, it's like, oh, you missed? All right, take 20 seconds and go up and do another set of 3. Like she did it in the quarterfinal workout with the strict at the end. She failed 1, dropped down, shook it out for 5 seconds, and hopped back up and did 2. It's like, what the heck is even going on?
Super impressive.
Yeah. So anyways, that workout came out, warm-up area, kind of looking around and like, yeah, she's definitely going to win this. But don't put the focus on winning because you don't know what's going to happen. You get out there and you have a judge who's looking at the wrong angle and they can't see the head go down below the line. Like still strange shit can happen. So I'm not going to place, this feeling of success or failure on just winning this workout. I want you to go out there and I want you to be aggressive and I want you to have some fun with this because these are the kinds of experiences that honestly, like you're going to cherish forever. Like this is going to be a memory that you're going to look back on years and years and years in the future. And you're going to realize that being back in this moment was like one of the highlights of my whole career. So like just be there and be present in that moment. She got off the bike, I think second after Mao and ran to the wall. And then everybody in the place sort of realized what was going to happen. And like just feeling that energy happen. Like I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah. What is worse for you as a coach as far as the butterflies in your stomach? A workout that maybe she wouldn't do as well at, or the middle of that one where that she should win and not knowing what's actually going to happen?
Yeah, I think that the nervous in my gut is still more about the weakness workouts because I feel like, again, it goes back to what we were talking about before with the mentality that she has for a wheelhouse workout, which I think is also like, it's rare in an athlete to be able to completely always step up to the plate when they're throwing those kinds of softballs. There's some people who would shy away from that. Like, this workout's going to be really good for me. Oh God, I got to put a lot of pressure on myself because I have to win this. I have to win this. Like, this is my only chance. That's not really how she sees it. Like, she sees it. She's like, awesome. I'm going to go and attack this with everything that I've fucking got. And like, that is just a rarity, I think. And so I don't have nerves when that comes out like that. I think it's more about like, still making sure that when something comes out that's not completely in her favor, can we get her in a mindset that's closer to what it would be like to be able to attack, and then also have a strategy that's going to meet her with where she's at. That's where I would feel a little bit more pressure.
Yeah. So that second wall, and then I think a little bit on the third wall, she got a few no reps, and it's hard to know exactly. I mean, the standard. I want to talk about some of the workouts later on, and actually get your opinion on those. But felt like the standard was maybe a little sloppily thought of the way that they had it set up.
I don't know if you heard him talk about where he got that idea from. He got that idea from a gymnastics mentor of his back in the day who would do those kinds of freestanding handstand push-ups off of a stair. And so his head would go down below the level of the stair and then come back up. So it's never touching anything. And he wanted to replicate that, which is like, all right, I get it. But this is a sport. In order to do that, you need to have some sort of set standard for what it means to be able to get below a depth. I think that it was left too open to interpretation. I know that talking to Will, talking to Noah, talking to Travis, there was just a lot of very, very, I don't know how best to say it, because I know the judges were trying to do the best they can. It was hard to hold a standard to that.
Well, that's the problem, right? If the judges truly are trying to be objective and the best that they can, they still don't know.
It's their first time seeing it, because the other argument would be like, hey, squats, you don't have to hit anything on a squat, but they're used to doing those.
No. But it's very easy to see hip crease below knee. That line and the way that they had an angle with the wall facing makes it very challenging to know exactly where to go.
I would say more challenging for the guys too. So they had one white line there that all the girls had to do was just
pass it.
They just had to break that initial top plane. The guys had to get all the way down below the bottom one, which is harder to see because now you've got to see the white line, but you've also got to see them pass below and see black on that side of it. So I thought that standard it was hard for the judges probably more than anything, but it was also hard for the athletes because they didn't know if the rep was good or not until they got back to the top. Yeah. Because there's no feedback from the judge at the bottom. It's either you have to figure out when to turn directions, you don't know if it was right or not, and then coming back up to the top, then you hear it was a no rep and like, well, shit, why didn't you tell me while I was down there?
Yeah. So on the screen, they all look the exact same. I know that they probably look different to the judge. The judge isn't just trying to screw her over or whatever, but I'm trying to figure out like, well, what's a no rep for? She just keeps going. She comes down, kicks back up, just like you said, basically can just do them. But during that moment, are you like, oh no, this judge is going to keep no repping her and screwing her over?
Yeah, it's definitely a thought that you entertain, but then like you just see how she's responding to it.
She handled it so well.
She is just in this place where like, doesn't matter what that judge says. It doesn't matter what the other people around her. She's not going to not win that workout. So
one of the things that Max wanted to do on site in the games camps was no rep people for things that were either truly no reps or just in general, like he would go up and no rep someone for something, like they hit the wall ball target, they got their hip crease below the knee, but he still just gave him no rep.
Yeah.
Did you do any of that with Alexis? Did you guys have conversations about like you may get unfair no reps and you just got to keep handling it? Or is she just so good at that you didn't have to talk about that?
No, we didn't really practice any of that. I do think that there's value in that. And Max and I have talked about that with the on-site training environment in the past, to be able to be like, you have to get better at dealing with that form of chaos, whatever your judge is saying in that moment, because there's different people who judge differently, who look at things differently, who are going to say this person is a good rep, this person's a no rep, even though they might look exactly the same. So you have to get used to that. I didn't really do that with her. One of the things we tried to be better about, and we probably need to get even better about, is making sure that she does very strictly hold the movement standards as much as possible. Like one of the things that I wrote down to myself afterwards when I was trying to decompress a little bit was this idea that a slow rep is better than a no rep. You make sure that what you're doing is meeting the standard, because going back and getting no reps, it can be emotionally devastating when you're racing, right? And I think that she felt that a lot because the style of programming that Bosman had, there was high levels of risk and there was high levels of punishment if you did mess up. And so you have to be able to ride that line as close as possible without sacrificing too much speed and without trying to like overthink or over exaggerate the movements. So it is something that we need to work a little bit more on going forward. But in that moment, like, I feel like it wasn't necessarily about her dealing with her judge. It was just like she was on a mission.
Yeah. And you could see it. She kicked down on one of them, like looked up for a second and then just basically walked her way right back up, finished the reps, got on the bike and does the 25 cows. And she said she was at like 85 plus RPMs.
No, she finished those 25 cows, I think, in like 50 seconds.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, that's faster than most guys would do.
The middle bikes, I told her, like, the middle bikes, don't use your arms. Like, there's no point in even using your arms. That's not the race. And so she's on the middle bike, like shaking her arms out. I told afterwards, I was like, you should have done that on the last bike too. Like, just sit there and be like, on the last,
no
she
chance.
was so far ahead.
Yeah, she would not do that.
Yeah, I knew she wouldn't do it, but I thought it would.
She was going to sprint regardless.
A little bit of a power move.
All right, so she jumps off the bike and gets up on the stage. You know that she won the event. She was in the last heat. She beat everybody by, it was over a minute or something like that. It was a lot. What's going through your mind then?
Man, that's one of those things that you're just going to remember forever. And I know like that's for me talking, but like for her to be in that moment, to like have all the eyes on her and all the cheering, like, and knowing that how bad she wanted it, like it makes it even better. Like to have somebody like that who you've seen all the work that they put in to get to this point, and then you see them get to this point and be able to like live out this dream, like this dream that every athlete has of being able to win an event at the games in the Coliseum against some of the best in the world. Like Tia was second in that workout. She was beating her the whole time. Like
she beat her by like a minute, right?
She beat her by like a minute. And
so even if they had crossed the line like within seconds, it still would have been sweet. But the fact that you had such a big,
it's amazing.
Yeah. No, it was just really, really special. And it's one of the things that I try to tell her ahead of time is like, you have to expect those moments to happen in order for them to happen. You can't try and shy away from them. You can't pretend that you're not able to do that, because if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have this like little bit of swagger and arrogance about you, then you're not going to be able to actually manifest those moments.
Walk us through what happened in the back after that. You go back there, she comes back. Just what were the conversations like? What were the emotions like?
Yeah. So I was up in the coaches section of the bleachers.
Yeah.
She finished the workout. I had tried to tell her where I was sitting because she had tried to find me on the Elizabeth workout before, and she's, it's
a lot of people in there. It's hard.
Yeah. And so I was like, I drew the stadium. I was like, this is the coaches section. This is the finish line. I'll be sitting here.
This is my bald head.
Yeah. I'll have my hat on, but I also have a bald head. And so I told her where I was going to be sitting just in case. And then so she finished that workout and she's looking around and she sees me and we make eye contact and we kind of like, celebrate. And I was already going crazy. I think all the other coaches around me had moved by that point because they didn't want to be next to me anymore.
I hate this guy.
You're fucking crushing them. And then like, oh, but yeah. So we had that moment.
Were you
there.
During the event going crazy?
I was losing my shit during the
event. You should have filmed them. That'd have been awesome.
Yeah. No, that you would have seen like the other coaches.
I didn't get the map.
Like look at me and then trying to like push themselves away to not be next to the crazy old guy next to them.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure I enjoyed that
moment
moment
too.
too.
Felt pretty good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that was a lot of fun. So she did that. She saw her family. She did her interview afterwards and then walked back down to the back and we saw each other and it was just like, that's why you coach right there. Like to see somebody who it's either like they did something that they didn't know they could do, or they realized a dream that they didn't know was like actually within their reach. And it's just like in that moment, like it's just all worth it. It was all of it was worth it in that moment. And so like you hug and you talk about it and you just can't stop smiling. Like that's the stuff that like you talk about why we coach. Like that's why we coach is for those moments. And I'm not saying like that's more important than like somebody else's path. Like somebody who got their first ring muscle up feels the same thing. Somebody who like did double unders for the first time feels the same thing. It's just in that level with all the energy directed towards her, knowing that this is her goal, knowing how hard she's worked through all of the things that she's had to be able to like navigate to get to that point. It just all like came to fruition in that moment. It was just like, it was so freaking special.
Yeah. I think it makes it even more special when you know how hard someone's worked.
Yeah.
And again, not only for the games, but someone that gets their first ring muscle up or, is rehabbing a back injury. If you know that they're like really getting after it and working towards their goal, like that makes it so much fun as a coach.
Yeah. I remember, I used to have to explain to people why I'm not an engineer anymore. Like why I'm not an electrical engineer. Obviously that's what I got my degree in, right. And I'm still a nerd at heart. When I was first starting to coach people in my garage, there was a couple of moments like that just stood out to me. One of them was my dad had an old work buddy who had neuropathy in his legs. He had rheumatoid arthritis. There was things that he physically didn't know if he could do. And I would train him and like we would literally just try and practice like getting up and down off of the floor if he happened to fall down and he needed to be able to go and get help. And seeing some of the progress that he made, seeing the impact that it had on him, and then knowing that it impacted not only his like image of himself, but also his quality of life. I was like, I have to be a coach. Amazing. I can't not do something that isn't this fulfilling because then you go and you scale that up to a moment like that. It's like, that's why you do it. Like you try and, I'm not saying that a coach is everything, but like the role that I was able to play in that moment to be able to enjoy it with her, like I'll just be able to look back with like just this pleasant feeling of, I don't know if satisfaction is powerful enough, but just like this fulfillment of helping this person achieve that was amazing.
For sure. And you guys aren't done. So the end of the weekend, she finishes 10th place, which was her goal. I'm interested to know, did you have a goal in your mind?
I thought top 10.
Yeah.
I thought top 10 was very, very doable. It was going to be a stretch because when we set that goal, we didn't know what any of the events were.
Right.
And I also, like I talked about earlier, like I don't like holding up objective goals like that then place things at like this air of how are you going to interpret it at the end of the weekend? If you were 11th, is that a failure? If you were 9th, did you over exaggerate? Like, what does it actually mean? I don't know. But I think just in terms of knowing where she's at, knowing the growth and the like development that she's had over the last year, I knew it was very realistic. And I wanted her to have an ambitious goal so that she didn't get too comfortable, so that when there was places out there where if you're stuck between strategy A and strategy B and one's a little bit more risky, like, don't shy away from it. Don't shy away from it, because for you to be able to take the next steps, you're going to have to take risks. It can't always be conservative game plans. You're going to have to go out there and, I don't know if I can hold this pace, but I'm going to see, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you talked a little bit about this, what training is going to look like, but now that you've gone through the whole games process with her, you guys are obviously very comfortable with the coach-athlete relationship that you have. When you sit down with her and talk about the off season, what are the major priorities outside of more game style work? Are there things that you have identified for Alexis that you're going to work on this next year?
Yeah, there's the games showed us, like I said before, that everything can improve. There's no point in getting comfortable with any given strength, aside from maybe strict handstand push-ups. I think that what we see, and like you've been telling us this for years, is the amount of running at the games, even in workouts that don't necessarily have running as like a scored component, is just such a value add to be able to have in your locker, to be able to know, like, listen, if I'm running back and forth to wall balls and snatches and back, I know that I can sprint all out for 40 meters and be fine to be able to then do wall balls and squat snatches, like just that confidence that it builds.
Right.
And so I can't look at her anymore and be like, you're a good runner. You know, we're just going to do running at a maintenance level. You're a good swimmer. We're just going to do swim once a week. You just can't do that anymore. And so I think it is going to be more of an all-encompassing training plan with more of an eye towards the specific demands of the games. Now sort of knowing that she's at the level where she can afford to bias her training plan a little bit more to the game's demands, instead of peaking for quarterfinals, peaking for semifinals now. I think that we've kind of proven that we can afford to start to take a little bit of a step forward. I'm not going to say like we're going to get out ahead of ourselves and like compromise anything or try and train through semifinals, but I do think that now having an eye towards what is unique at the games is going to put her in a place to be able to hopefully improve upon what she did this year.
Yeah, I think with all our athletes, even those that are games level, you still have to make sure that they're prepped and ready for quarterfinals and semifinals, because the field is so deep. But she now has enough confidence. I think that plays a huge role, especially when you go to semifinals. And then obviously she has enough skill that she can get there and she's going to be able to crush those workouts and have an opportunity to make the games. What happens with most athletes, though, is I think that they see the games workouts and they start training that way without earning the right to do that, because they're not good at the quarterfinal stuff or the semifinal stuff. And it's like, well, you're training for all these things, but you still haven't mastered the legless rope climb that you're going to have to do for 10 rounds of running back and forth at semifinals. And that's what's going to cost you your trip to the game.
There still has to be a balance there. Still has to be a balance there.
For sure.
The other side of it is just knowing how technically good she is and how quick of a learner she is. But we can't count on that with new implements, right? Like the flip side example, like we broke that down over 3 weeks and she got really, really good at that. You're not going to have 3 weeks to train next time that we see a new piece of equipment. So trying to figure out how to get her to acquire a skill very, very quickly in the moment is something that we need to work on as well. And I also think that just like her strength metrics with a barbell went through the roof this offseason. But then you see that sandbag ladder and there's a different kind of strength that's associated with that. And even like the Husafel at the end of the Capitol, like it crushed her. It crushed her just because that's not something that I don't think that we trained enough, if I'm being honest. Like the level of just, I don't even know what it is. It's like farm boy strength is what I picture. Like putting something on your shoulder and just carrying it, or like putting something here and trying to figure out how to get it to your shoulder. Like it's just like brute level strength, which I don't think that's ever going to be her. That's never going to be like a wheelhouse workout for her. But we need to figure out how to make that a little bit better, where it's not technical. It's not something that you can just get around by having really good skill. I say that, but then probably one of the most impressive things of the weekend was watching Jacqueline Dahlstrom go head to head with freaking Danny Spiegel on it. And it was like, wow, that was amazing.
Or even Medeiros use the same technique from bag to bag. I don't know if you watch the males go.
Yeah, he did the long strong man.
I mean,
way
he's strong, but he's not as that farm boy strength as a lot of the other guys that made it to close to those final bags, and he still was able to master it through a technical proproficiency. That
so maybe I shouldn't say that it didn't have a technical component to it, because watching Dahlstrom do it was mind blowing to me. How she was able to throw that bag around. She weighs like $130, probably. Super
impressive.
Yeah, that was I thought that cool.
That whole event I really enjoyed. I wish it wasn't as long as it was. Like it was really drawn out, but it was really cool to see. I mean, how strong, both on the female and the male side, I was shocked at how many people hit the heavier bags.
Yeah.
In my mind, I was like, most guys are going to get capped at 300 or 310. And then there were 20 guys left doing 320.
Well, they clearly didn't think about it. They ended with a tie. What?
Yeah.
What are you even doing? You have chips. Just take it out to another decimal place. What are you doing right now?
Something.
Yeah.
So I want to turn the corner a little bit. We're going to come back to Alexis, but just talk about the games workouts in general, because this was totally different than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
And we have a podcast coming out with Max about a lot of that, but just from a different point of view, you had an athlete there, but this is also completely different coaching environment with the way that the games have gone in the past. So what did you think about the programming? Like initial thoughts as you saw the workouts come out? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And then how does that change your view of how to train athletes moving forward, especially someone that you know will likely make the games again? Like you can't just think of only, okay, it's a bunch of strength endurance work with a barbell now. Maybe it is the strongman stuff.
Yeah. I was very interested to see what he was going to do. So I had listened to a couple of different podcasts with Bosman on them, and a lot of the themes behind what he was saying was he wasn't necessarily interested in having like this war of attrition with athletes. Like it wasn't about, I'm going to beat you guys down and just see who's left standing at the end of the weekend. He was always the first to say, I want these athletes to showcase what it is that they're capable of. And I think what that ended up turning into was a very accurate representation of that. It was a lot of interval style stuff. It was a lot of skill based stuff. It was a lot of high stakes races where it was like, who can actually step up to the pressure and execute. There were still gruely, like grindy workouts in there, but it wasn't anything like the past. And I think that if we know that he's the one that's going to be in charge, or if we at least know that that's the bias going forward, that does kind of change things a little bit.
Yeah. Could I argue though that in his attempt to showcase the athletes, he actually hurt them by making them look silly with crossover double unders and the wall facing handstand push-ups and things like that?
I think that, you could make the argument. I won't stop you from doing that. I know that in the past, they've kind of had that be a point of pride in terms of being like, all right, listen, I don't know what year it was that they did the pegboard first, but like how many people actually did the pegboard successfully? It was like two girls and maybe like 10 guys.
Yes.
And they're like, all right, you guys better figure this out for next year. Like they're not going to shy away from that. I think that the crossover double under was a mistake, mostly because that event was awesome to watch until the last round. And then all of the energy just got sucked out of that place when they sat there and watched those girls just like fumble around with singles. Like just have them do triple unders. You know, it's probably more likely that they have that in their bag. It's probably more likely that they can string those together. And now you're actually like leveraging the intensity or like the energy of that place. But that was, I thought, poorly done on that programming side of things, but I can kind of see where he was going with it. And I don't think that you should shy away from skills that you're pretty sure most of the athletes don't have, because it does continue to raise the level. I do think maybe what you should do is you should just say ahead of time, 2 weeks out, we're going to test A, B, C, and D, and then let them practice and then let them showcase what it is that they're capable of. Because then it's not something where like Nick Matthews, somebody who has like years and years of practice with crossover double unders or like running man skip steps, like he should still have a benefit or an advantage from having that in his background, but now you're not making the rest of the athletes look foolish.
Sure.
So,
yeah. So what about training then? Do you keep a barbell in there often? Are you going to bias it more towards the sandbags and the strongman and the heavy yokes, the interval style work that they tested?
Yeah, I think for Alexis specifically, we have to do more strongman stuff. It's just looking at the events like the sandbag and then the capital, like those workouts are just like, that's what she has to get better at as an athlete. That's the lowest hanging fruit.
Sure.
It's not to the point now where she's taken a last place, which I'm really proud of. But it's a low hanging fruit for her as an athlete, like just getting her used to odd object strength and being able to grind through something that she's not super comfortable with. The skill focus with the gymnastics, honestly, is more fun than anything else. Like when we heard Bosman say a couple of times, there's going to be new movements, there's going to be new equipment, there's going to be different variations on gymnastics. And like over the last couple of weeks, we just had fun with things. Like we had fun, like back rolls of support or like bar pullovers for reps. Like it was kind of cool to work on. So I think things like that, I like that they're pushing the direction of the complexity of the gymnastics versus just like the loading parameters here or the volume parameters here. And now we're adding like more of a skill component to things. So I enjoy that. And I'm kind of excited to work on that because I do think that is something where a lot of these athletes don't really spend a lot of time when they're training. Like they're more of like, how heavy can I go? How long can I go? How many reps can I do? And now it's like, what kind of skills can I actually add to my repertoire now? It
is funny to track the trends, you know, as the testing body changes from year to year. You remember the regional year where it was all dumbbells and rings. Yeah. And then everyone the next year was doing a lot of that. And then the following year it was a bunch of heavy barbells and powerlifting. And so then more people did powerlifting work, and then it became Olympic lifting again.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing that at least people are moving around and getting well-rounded at all these things.
It's a good thing, but you can't afford to get too reactionary to it. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's the big takeaway. So even though that was the bias for this year's programming, I don't think that you'd be doing yourself a favor by just going out and doing a heavy sandbag ladder every day. You need to get more comfortable.
I would break my back in if I was trying to do that.
Those bags are huge.
I know. The girls would have beat me. I'm so weak.
You could have done the 240.
So weak.
Yeah. No, that's again, the big takeaway. And I think that you do that at every stage in the season. Like you try and look for themes, you try and understand what it is that they're trying to test, but you don't read too much into the details. Like you don't just go and retest all the quarterfinal workouts from last year. You might go pick one and prove that you've actually shown progress with that over time, but you don't just try and like hammer all of those rep schemes and all those movement combinations. Like you look for the themes, then you try and train the themes. On this, it's like complexity of gymnastics is going to go up because of Bosman's background and because how he wants to test things. You probably don't have to be worried as much about those long workouts anymore. Like, yeah, the Capital one was long, or yeah, the bike ride was long, but there's different aspects to those now where it's not just like beat you down for the sake of beating you down.
Yeah. What do you think about, you brought up quarterfinals, and let's add semifinals in there, or even the open. Let's say open, quarterfinals, semifinals, assuming that everything stays the same, which we really don't know at this point. Mm-hmm. Do you think some of that programming style will trickle down into the first 3 stages going into the games?
Yes.
What would you guess that it looks like? I know that's a hard question.
That is a hard question. I think that you are probably going to see a little bit, well, what they've shown in the last couple of years is that, especially at the open level, they're going to keep it super simple. Yeah. And so I don't think that complexity on gymnastics is going to make it down to that level. I think it's still just going to be very simple things, test of work capacity, a couple of different movement combinations, something that anybody could pick up with 2 weeks if they have the appropriate athletic background. I think at quarterfinals and semifinals, where they actually do start to make a little bit more cuts, where they're actually trying to weed out who is the best of the best, I think you're going to see some of those things work their way down. I also think for next year, I would not be surprised to see a more standardized level of programming across all the semifinals. I think that they got so much, I won't say blowback, but they got feedback from the community that having, it was kind of like restricted guidance. Like, all right, everybody's going to have these 2 events, put them wherever you want over the course of the weekend. Doesn't really matter to us. We just want to make sure that all of this is done. I feel like it was kind of almost counterproductive to go like part way in and part way out. Like you have your foot in both camps. Just have them do the same thing.
Yeah, I would love that. I think that would be fantastic, and in the same order too.
I think it professionalizes the sport a little bit more. I think you're going to get a better feel for the kinds of athletes that are going to the games. I think that if you're trying to set yourself up for more of like a season, then you can actually think a little bit more about not just having like the games be like the ultimate test. You can have like different stages or like different even like qualifiers, like the PGA Tour, for example, where if we have this standardized series of tests over the course of a season, then we can score them over the whole season instead of just saying like, this is in a bubble, the quarterfinals is in a bubble, the semifinals are in a bubble. Now the slate's wiped clean for the games. Like if you want to take the sport to different places, standardize the program, and then you open yourself up for all these other options.
Oh man, what would that be like if you got points for each stage and then that placed you at the games? So in other words, you crush the open, you do terrible in quarterfinals, and then you do okay in semifinals. You've got so many points, and now you're in 24th starting the games.
That looks like a sport to me.
I mean, it does.
I would love it.
Picture any sport right now, like the regular season, you get seeded based off of all of your wins and losses and ties in the regular season, and you get a placement going into the postseason. You get to, like, the first seed plays the 8th seed or whatever else it's going to be. Like, there's a reason that there's 2 different aspects to that. And so wiping the slate clean at some point, I get it, because to this point, they've had all the semifinals and the regionals be independently programmed or even independently run by different people outside of them. I think one of the things that they could do to try and professionalize the sport again is to do what we had just said, like actually have a series of events that exists that can be scored independently. And then based off of the points that you accumulate over the course of the season, that changes what things look like at the games. And so now you can have athletes who they can, if they want to take a longer off season, they can. If they want to compete more throughout the season, they can. And like, it's going to be their decision, and they can weigh the pros and cons of it.
Yeah. The problem here is that they've changed the system almost every single year for the last 5-6 years. So it would be nice just to have like, here are the rules. We're going to stick with this for 5 years, but also
I agree with that.
Continuing to upgrade the system does make sense, especially in such, I mean, I know it's been around for 12 years, but it's still a new sport compared to, or in relation to a lot of these other sports around.
Yeah. But I think that knowing that you're like sort of the new kid on the block, and knowing that you want to take things to the next level, and you want to have like young up and coming athletes to be able to look at CrossFit as a legitimate like earning opportunity, right? Instead of saying like, I am the next LeBron James. I could go play basketball or football or whatever else I want to do. I have just this natural athletic talent. But hey, look at CrossFit. Like I could go and make X amount of money with my sponsorships and my prize money. Like you want to be able to attract that kind of person. But if you don't have a certain level of stability associated with your sport, you're never going to get them. They're always going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. And the money is just too low, even for high level athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're making very, very good money now, but it's so few compared to other sports.
Yeah.
So I want to just quickly ask a couple more questions. And then Chris, if you have any rapid fires, have those on cue.
I don't do rapid fires.
All right. I've asked this to everyone that's been on about the games. Your favorite workout and your least favorite workout.
All right.
It can't be the Echo Press.
Why not?
Because that's obvious. Outside of the Echo Press, I told Alexis she couldn't say that
I actually
either.
think, I'm going to say this. I don't know if she's going to like it. I think that workout was kind of sillily written. Is that a word?
I said it just as like to make a point earlier.
Because what's the point of the bike? Yeah. What's the point of the bike in that workout? They say
I agree. You just have to like chill.
What's the point of the bike in that workout? Like anybody with any level of like experience in CrossFit is going to look at that and be like, okay, that's a handstand push-up workout. Right. Just make it a handstand push-up or change it so that you actually do have to do something on the bike. Like I get that at the end, like there was some guy, like did you see Paulson race his at the end and he passed like 3 people? Like, okay, that
was
bike,
fun to watch.
Yeah, that bike matters, but maybe do like 30 deficit handstand push-ups into 60 cal bike or like something different. And then it's a combination. But yeah, I thought that one was just like, it worked to our favor. So I'm not upset about it, but I thought it's like, why are they?
There were some girls that were just like
in the middle.
They were barely spinning at one because they had to wait to recover.
Yeah, they were already blown up.
Yeah,
yeah. But like even Alexis was sitting there biking with no arms. Like at that point, why are you even on the bike?
But she was still going at like 68 RPMs.
Yeah,
that's pretty fast.
I forget what we had said. I was like, just bike with your legs, and she came off. She's like, I was just biking with my legs, but I was still like.
She's like, I felt so good.
Watts. Yeah,
that's the mentality of just knowing you're going to crush a workout.
It's also
all the confidence.
Yeah, it's also adrenaline.
Yeah. All right. That one aside, favorite workout, least favorite workout.
All right. Favorite workout. I really liked on paper the hat trick workout. The run down wall ball dumbbell snatch.
Yep. Okay.
I like that because it was a different format for trying to figure out where you can race or how hard you can race.
Yeah.
Right. It was a wall ball height that nobody had ever really done before, I'm sure.
And outside, which plays a
huge role. Dumbbell squat snatches, like you saw different variations of that, which is a somewhat simple skill, right? Like you snatched up, you overhead squat, but watching like Guy and I think Ellie Turner, who won for the girls, like watching them do their pull unders on that, you can see that there's different aspects of how you can race that format, and then aggregating the totals over the course of all of them. It's kind of like sprint and recover. I enjoyed that format. And I enjoyed watching people try and take a risk. I think that for Alexis, before we went out there, I was like, you have to take a risk here. Like you have to, this could be a really, really good workout for you, and ended up coming back to bite her. But I don't think that either her or myself would regret doing that. No.
Yeah. I think if she did that again, she would have done much better. It was probably she mentioned the nerves of making sure she didn't get any no reps with the wall balls because the pressure is so high there. And then she ended up getting a couple no reps.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if I sit here and tell you not to think about a pink elephant, like the first thing that pops into your head.
I have this giant pink elephant in my head. Thanks.
I hope his name is Sydney. She goes out there and she's thinking, don't get a no rep. And you manifest that into happening. But I also think that was a good learning experience for her to know that it's okay to take a risk, and there's going to be times when it doesn't pay off. Like if I look over the course of the weekend, the kinds of skills are the scores that I think that she could have done versus the scores that she actually had. That was probably the most room for improvement of being able to take, I think it was like 5 or 6 seconds for each one of those mistakes. And that adds up so much.
Especially in the sprint workout.
It just kind of makes it exciting, honestly.
I agree. I love that format. I probably would have chosen different movements, but I would love to see at least one of those in every single games because it tests something that's different than the 25-minute AMRAP.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the one that I didn't like, and I think this isn't necessarily from how it was written on paper. I think it was more about just sort of like exposing the fact that they didn't really have contingency plans, was that alpaca event. I don't know if Max talked about this. If he does, I'm probably going to say a lot of the same things that he did. We came in that day knowing that there was going to be rain. We woke up and it was just everywhere on the forecast. And so like right off the bat, our assumption is there's not gonna be any rope climbs, right? They're gonna change it. They're gonna add something else in there, but there's not gonna be any rope climbs. We go to our briefing that morning and Bosman says, we're climbing. We're gonna do this as written. We just went out and tested it. Everything's fine. The grip wasn't an issue. Here's the standard for the rope climbs. It was that, I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, we talked about it.
And so all right, well, I guess we're doing rope climbs. You go back and you warm up, and then they actually corral you and take you over to the North Park warm-up area. And then over there, we get rebriefed that now there's no rope climbs, that there's a longer push. It just, more than anything, I was disappointed that they didn't account for what that change was going to do for the overall battery of tests, if that makes sense. So you remove legless rope climbs from that workout. Now, all of a sudden, you've got kettlebell clean and jerks and a heavy sled push. The heavy sled push, even in that point, it's on a wet turf now, right? So it's not going to be a huge bottleneck. So now really what you're looking at is kettlebell clean and jerks. You pair that with the rest of the tests over the day, which were the back 9, which is a strongman workout, and then the Jackie sort of style one. That sort of test all of a sudden becomes really, really freaking similar, right? There's people in the back who were thinking, this, when you've got this legless standard, this new standard mixed in here, this is a completely different style workout with it. You take that out, and now all of a sudden you've got a group of athletes who are completely disappointed. You've got a group of athletes who are now on top of the world because now it's a strongman workout. I think that hopefully the lesson that they learned from that is when you have a contingency plan for a workout, whether it be weather or equipment or whatever else it might be, you need to still try and replicate the original intended stimulus of that workout to make sure that the total battery of testing isn't compromised as a result. Because now you've got girls who end up grabbing 100 more points than they probably would have if the workout wasn't the same.
I would love to go back, if we had a time machine, and test the workout as actually written and then compare the leaderboards, because there are some females and males that still would be at the top. Those are the ones usually that win the games, right? Sure. But the rest of it would have been very different, especially with the seated rope climb standard. That just changes the game, and having to go down without using your legs. It's very challenging.
Very, very challenging.
Did you ever brainstorm just as a fun game, what could have been done?
Well, have them do L-sit strict pull-ups on the rope.
That's what I said.
Yeah, just so you start seated, you bring your feet up off the ground, you do a pull-up, your chin gets above your hand at the top, you come back down, that's 1 rep. Do 10 of those for your first round, do 8 of those for your second round, do 6 of those for your third round.
Or what if you just said your feet have to be off the ground right away? Like you basically are in a true L-sit with your feet 2 inches off the ground, have a block there or whatever, and then you have to get to the 6 foot mark or something. Yeah. So it's shorter and you do double the reps. So instead of 2, it's 4 up and down to 6 feet. And it's only 3 or 4 pulls, but at least you're adding something in there that's creating that bottleneck.
The point is this 30-second conversation just had 2 viable alternatives. That still tried to respect and replicate the original intended stimulus of the workout. Instead, what ended up happening is, for safety reasons, which I'm not going to say was the wrong idea, they probably felt like they had to do it. They didn't want to have somebody dropping from the top off of something wet. You have to think about the implications of that change and what it's going to do to your overall test.
Right. We're talking about contingencies, and hopefully this hits home with someone. We were talking about this before we got on air, but for those that watch Better Call Saul, Chris, this is all for you right here. The final season just finished, and Chris and I are huge fans. We watched the whole thing. I'm like, man, they didn't miss a beat the entire, how many seasons was it? 5 seasons, 6 seasons? 6 seasons. Everything tied together, and they thought about every single scenario, every single contingency that someone could complain about. They tied it all back in. And I know that's a film. I know they have plenty of time to think about it, but so we do have the same time, at least a year, to think about the workouts and come up with contingencies for every single issue. The same thing with like the rain and the sleds for the teams, where the first heat goes and every team's struggling with the sled. And then all of a sudden they're like sliding like they're, it's crazy. It looked like they were on ice at that point.
Especially since you knew you were going to be outside, and that, rain's always going to be on the table.
It's an interesting case though, because on that one, maybe they did have a contingency plan for rain, but their hands got tied because half the field went through it and then the rain hit. And so they have to do the same because these people already have a score for it, but it can't be the same because the field's wet. So I can understand that. I don't know how to do it in that stance. Like if all of a sudden like half the field's through a workout and then a lightning storm hits, you have to take the other half of the field through that, even though they're going to be operating.
I know it's tough, but
that's a different scenario.
But they have to think through all of those issues and at least have some kind of backup plan. And I think it's hard, right?
Here's my thought. No more North Park. We're all out of the sun. You don't have to train for the sun anymore. I don't have to get sunburned.
You know how long
we don't have those long ass days.
Upset about that at all,
dude. It's brutal.
So only in that tiny coliseum, all the workouts for every single division. That would be outrageous.
That huge the age group pavilion.
Just do that's true. There. You could do it in there, but the stands aren't great. Yeah. All right, Chris, you have anything to hit home with?
We got a few.
All right, let's crush these.
So from Cheryl Cohen, following Alexis' success at the games, other elite female athletes want to begin training with Adam, will Alexis have a say in the decision?
Would she be able to say yes or no?
Yeah, is she part of this
Yeah, no, I think that she should have a say. I think that if there is somebody who, for whatever reason, thinks that a coach is the answer to their struggles, it would probably be because of what she's done. And so, like, I wouldn't want to take something on like that without her say. I also think that it's, we did this a little bit at semifinals. It is a really big challenge to try and coach different athletes at the same competition. It's a very, very big challenge. I mean, Allison and Alexis were both at Syndicate. They have different game plans. They have different strategies. They have different ways that they like to warm up. They're in different heats. To do that at the games, I know that there's coaches that do it. I know that Max basically does it with Noah and Travis, but they're very well established. They both are relatively self-reliant. I don't think that that's something that I would be wanting to take on. I feel like I would be compromising my ability to bring value if I'm getting stretched too thin or getting pulled in multiple directions.
That's a good point. It is very challenging, especially in different heats, because you're trying to watch one person go, warm up the other person. And it's very tough.
We were lucky enough at Syndicate that Frank was able to be there with Allison. I would give him warm-up plans. I would check in with Allison often. I had Alexis that we went through our own warm-up and prep. But that's something where if I'm coaching multiple people at the same competition, I will still try and do my best, but I still feel like it's dialed down on both sides because I can't give full energy and full attention. So I think to try and replicate that at a games level, I don't think would be fair to anybody, whether Alexis or whoever else I would take on.
Sarah Flack, will the mustache have
It's my sister.
Oh, that's your sister?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Will the mustache have a repeat showing when Alexis makes it next year?
Did you see my mustache?
I don't think so.
No. She, leading up to the games, she was trying to get me to have a mustache. I don't know why. She's like Top Gun and Andrew's a pilot. Like, I assume that's just a thing. And I was like, no, I'm not shaving a mustache for you. Get out of here. And then on Saturday night, I went down to their room and I got Kyle Habdo's electric razor and I shaved a mustache and it looked absolutely ridiculous. But like,
you look great.
Yeah. Sunday was her best day, aside from the event win. And I'm going to go ahead and take credit for that. But I think that if the handlebar brings another level of competition,
You'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, that was her second part. We go handlebar next year.
Yeah.
Let's see. Melvin wants to know which event was the hardest to game plan for.
It's probably that the alpaca one because they kept changing it on us. Like
you're doing it like on the fly.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out how to warm up for something that you think is like going to be legless limited, and then all of a sudden it's taken away. It's like, oh shit!
It's a sprint,
now we have to. Now we have to get your energy system ramped up in the next 5 minutes because it just.
How much time was there really when you found out ropes were officially gone?
We probably had another 10 to 15 minutes before they.
And is that corral time or is that hangout time?
Before they corralled them.
Before they corral.
Yeah, so that was over. In the North Park warm-up area. We had already done a little bit of prep in the athlete area. They walked us over there. And then when we got there, they said, no ropes, just this, breathe in your workout. There was people who were upset about it, obviously. And then you're just like, oh, shit.
People voice that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, was it kind of like intense or was it just like, man?
It couldn't get too intense because the guy that was telling us, he was just the messenger. So he's not the one who's in charge of the decision. He's just like, this is what you guys have. I can't change it. I'm just here to tell you what it is. So like it couldn't go really anywhere because you're not going to convince him of anything.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Lee's wants to know, how did you deal with training volume leading up to the games?
My overwhelming priority this year was to get her to the games healthy. That was my overwhelming priority. So we pushed strength metrics, we pushed training volume and density pretty hard. But I never got to the point where I was worried that I was overreaching her. And so volume as a whole, I feel like was probably not as aggressive as I think it's going to need to be going forward. I think it was a little bit more conservative by design this year, but I think going into the future to be able to actually like express a little bit more intensity on game day, she needs to be a little bit more volume acclimated than she was this year. If that makes sense.
And for me, what stage of the games was the most tricky coaching wise?
Like the season?
Yeah, of the season.
I feel like quarters is just chaos.
Sheer chaos.
It's just sheer chaos. By the time you get to semifinals, there's probably only a couple of any individual athletes that you have. It's kind of like narrowed its way down, and so it's a little bit more manageable. But quarterfinals, for the most part, is like your entire client book is doing quarterfinals, and it's just you're trying to track results and game plans and warm-ups and cool downs and managing emotions and trying to like, how are we going to redo this one? Or like, what's the schedule going to be? Or like, oh, you tweak this, we should change this. And you're doing that for 25 to 30 people. It's just chaos.
Not to mention on site, we have 45 or 50
and then you're
people
trying to
going.
figure out this on-site stuff. Yeah.
It's definitely tough. But it's a fun time of the year too. You look back and you're like, okay, we got through that.
Yeah. Maybe like 2 weeks afterwards. It's like you look back and like, oh yeah, that was fun. I'm glad I didn't die.
Two empty bottles of Blanton's later.
About that stage, do you think we should continue it if you were in charge or do something different?
I think
didn't that come in the COVID years and like we're just still hanging on to it, or am I misremembering?
I don't know what the original.
They were just trying to involve people, like the top 10% involved.
What do we think about it
into
now
the
that
next
it's been
stage.
this many years?
I think at this point it's still a necessary evil if they're going to have a sport that wants to be egalitarian in nature, like to open it up to anybody. Like I think you need to have an online version of it. I would still prefer that more of the seeding out process comes from an in-person event versus like the online side. I think there's just too many potential flaws and issues that come with an online format of competition that we still haven't figured out how to navigate 10 years later.
Yeah.
And so I would hope that quarterfinals, okay, take it down to 10%, but then from there, try and figure out how to get these people in front of live judges before you then take another step forward. That would be my bias.
All right. I want to finish this out just like I did with Alexis. I asked her to talk a little bit about you and that process over the last, however many years it's been, 3.5, 4 years. So you guys aren't done. In my view, Alexis is one of the most talented athletes in the sport. She's also one of the most likable. Like I can't wait to see what she can do both in the CrossFit realm as far as like actually on the floor, but then like getting at her name out there and more visibility because of how awesome she is. So I just wanted to give you a couple minutes to talk about her, give some encouragement to other athletes that want to be like her, and then obviously you can finish it out however you want.
Yeah. Oh man, that's hard. I remember I was telling Chris about this before we got on. One of my favorite things about the games this year was being able to go back to the hotel afterwards and talk with Max, like over dinner, like just the two of us. Like the level of perspective and experience that he has, it's invaluable for me. Like I'm older than he is, but he's still my mentor, right? Like I still have learned so much from that man. And I remember telling him, I don't think it was after Friday. It might've been after Friday when she won that event. I was like, man, just coaching her, like it feels like cheating. Like it honestly, like it just feels like cheating sometimes. Cause she's this unique combination of she's so naturally talented physically. She is a perfectionist from both nature and nurture, right? Like her family is very supportive, but they're also very, motivating and demanding of a higher standard. And also the background that she has in gymnastics, like it just kind of all fits together to like fit her personality. Like she just always demands the best from herself. So you got physical talents, you've got this idea of never settling for any sort of level of mediocrity, but she's also like one of the most coachable athletes I've ever had. And part of that is like, I talked about it before, like when she commits to something like fully and completely. And part of that commitment was to me as a coach. And like, I don't take that lightly. Like I see somebody who buys into it and then like, I'm going to pour my heart and soul into you to make sure that I'm giving back and that I'm earning your trust. And that has been one of the really, really cool things about it is like, not only has she been able to sort of live up to what we both knew what the potential was going to be, but like, it's been a journey that we've been on together that I mean, honestly, like it's been one of the best times of my life. Like this year was just so freaking fun. But I think part of it is just due to the fact that she has this, like, I don't know, she's just built different. Like she has all the physical things, she has all the mental things, and she has this willingness and ability, like to be able to trust what I say. And I'm not going to say that I have all the answers, but that the nature of that relationship, I feel like has what's really been able to pull us to a different level.
Yeah. I'm excited for the future. And I think that we may be having this conversation in a different tone next year. So I'm excited for that. All right, guys.
You're not going to do word association?
No, come on. You hate my word association.
I'm going to hit stop on this before we get to word association.
I have fun
he tried
games.
that on the podcast, and I was like, come on, bro.
Did you cut it out?
Well, we'll see.
It's still on there. But he screw you, Chris.
I can't blame him.